If you'd like online business explained to you in a way that you can actually understand, go to latenightim.com/explain. It's completely free and I made it just for you. Now, how about an episode?
Episode 178.
Late Night Internet Marketing.
This week on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast, we talk about fundamental ways to build traffic to your website and what's going on with Google. All this and more on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
The Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
You've been working for somebody else, but you want a business to run yourself. You want to know how to start and where to begin. Can you get out your comfort zone, my friend? Yes, you can do it right when it's late at night. At the end of the day, your dreams burning inside. So keep it up and you will find that you're building your business one night at a time.
And now, broadcasting late at night from a little studio in the big state of Texas, your host, Mark Mason.
Hey, how is everyone doing? I hope that you are having an absolutely amazing day that's part of an even better week. I am Mark Mason, and this is the podcast where you can learn all kinds of stuff that you need to know to help start and grow your internet business. I'm coming to you from Dallas, Texas, and I could not be happier to be here. I really mean that. I really dig this whole communicating with the audience thing, so much so that we're going to do something a little crazy. So my buddy Cliff Ravenscraft is a guy who is constantly trying the latest thing. Whatever the latest cool tech is, Cliff almost always has doing something with it. And in fact, it's a little crazy because he's from Kentucky and I didn't even know they had electricity there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I know they have electricity there. It's running water that those guys are looking for. No, I'm kidding. No, seriously, he's always got the latest tech and he's always especially interested in technology that improves his person-to-person audience engagement and communication. One of the things he's famous for is using tools to send personal videos to his listeners. And he does all of this massive one-on-one engagement. And one of the things that he's done recently that I have just fallen in love with, he drugged me kicking and screaming into this application called Voxer. Now, Voxer is this kind of crazy application that reminds me of the old days when there were Nextel cell phones. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the Nextel cell phones, but you'd be peacefully sitting in a restaurant, minding your own business, and some guy sitting next to you, usually a construction guy or whatever, his Nextel phone would go off and make some heinous noise. And then some disembodied someone from God knows where, their voice would come blaring over the speaker. It was like a Nextel walkie-talkie cell phone. And we had these around work and you could see it. There were people on the street would have them. And it was the most annoying thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Well, the Voxer app implements that, but it does it in a considerably less annoying way. And basically, the way the Voxer app works is that you press a button and you can leave what's essentially a walkie-talkie message for whoever you're connected with. So this is really cool. So if I want to tell Cliff something, I can just hit a button and speak my mind and then let go. And this is very much like the capability that already exists inside of text messaging or the iMessage app on the iPhone, where you can record a voice memo. Here's where it gets interesting. On Cliff's end, what would happen is that he would get a notification. If he has it set up for notifications, he would get a notification that Mark is talking. And if he ignores that notification later, he can come back to the app and play that voice message. And that's not very interesting because that's sort of the same thing that you can already do in the iMessage texting application. But what's really cool is if he decides he wants to listen right then, he can start listening. And he's essentially listening live. This thing turns into a streaming walkie-talkie app. So I talk and he talks, and we can essentially jump into and have an instant conversation. So the effect that this has is that basically what I'm saying is, hey, Cliff, I've got this thing I want to say. And if he doesn't have time to deal with me, he's not bothered at all. And he can get back to that whenever he wants to. But if he's available to be distracted by me, he can just reply immediately and we can immediately get into a conversation. And not only that, everything that he says, I have the ability to save and use later, and we can have these ongoing conversations. And this, I mean, Cliff and I always talk to each other a lot, but this has totally changed everything with regard to sort of the access that we have to each other and kind of our ability to bounce ideas off of each other. And so I'm really enjoying this. I'm also using this some with my friend Rusty Ryle, who's an amazing copywriter that was on the podcast a few episodes ago. And I'm enjoying that as well too. So this is a really neat application. It's fun because sometimes Cliff and I will be talking, but I'll be in the car with my wife and I'll hold the phone up to my wife and she'll shout at him. You know, it's really cool.
Hey, Cliff, I'm talking about Voxer on episode 178 of the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast. What would you like to say to my audience, sir?
I'd like to say that Voxer is hands down my absolute favorite tool, application, piece of technology that I enjoy for connecting with people in my community and my close personal friends above any other tip, tool, technique, strategy, application out there. And I would say that Voxer for me, I enjoy more than Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, email, and any other form of communication combined. That's what I'd like to say. And I'm Cliff EOTC on Voxer, if anybody wants to reach out.
I recommend the Voxer app. Here's what I want to do. What's really neat for podcasters is that you have this recording and it's a pretty decent digital recording. You know, the iPhone mic is a pretty good mic, or, you know, if you're on an Android, same thing. Your Samsung Galaxy mic is a great mic. And so those recordings are saved and could be used in a podcast. So here's what I think we should do. If you would like to talk to me and give me some feedback about the show, or ask me a question about your business, or tell me what's going on, or just say hello, I would love to talk to you on Voxer. Now, this is an experiment. If all of you that are listening to my voice right now Voxer me at once, my mind will explode. But we know as podcasters, that's not usually what happens. Some of you are driving right now and you'll never think about this again. But some of you will download the Voxer app, which you can easily find in the App Store for your phone, or I will link to in the show notes. And you can message me on Voxer, and I would absolutely love to hear from you on Voxer and hear, what's going on with you, what your questions are, what your ideas are for show topics, stuff you're stuck on, something I can help you with. Let's start a conversation and see where that goes, and run what I'm calling the Late Night Internet Marketing Voxer experiment. I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me on Voxer. Now, if you listened to the show last week, I had 17 tips that you could use to hack your time and get more stuff done. That episode's already getting a lot of positive feedback. That was in response to a commitment that I made from the main stage at FlynnCon, as I explained to you last week. What I didn't give you were tips 18 and 19. So I wanted to give you tips 18 and 19 today just to fill that in, because these were two things that occurred to me after I hit the stop button on my Rode Podcaster Pro. I thought, oh man, the episode's already in the can, but I've got these other two time management tips that I think are really important. Time management tip number 18, and this is extending from last week's show. Number 18 is take a day off work. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now. I've arranged with my family, said, hey, I'm taking the day off work. And while the kids are at school, I'm going to be working on my internet business. I'm taking a day of vacation. I don't have to worry about crossing the beams, as we talked about in episode 176. And I can basically work all day long. Now, my wife and I have an arrangement, or she understands that coming home and working on the business all day actually means I'm going to be working on the business. It doesn't mean that I'm taking the day off, saying I'm going to work on the business, and I'm going to end up painting the garage or doing some of the other 75,000 chores that really need to be done here at the little studio in Dallas. What it really means is I'm going to be sitting at my desk working. Now, the truth of the matter is I probably will also take the opportunity to have lunch with my wife, and we probably will have some side conversations, some of them about my business, some of them about my coming trip to the Free the Dream conference or whatever. But most of the day is going to be spent on the late night internet marketing.com empire. So that's awesome. And you can do this too. Maybe you only get 2 weeks of vacation a year. Maybe you can take one of those days and spend them on your online business. If you're like me and you've been working at the same company for almost 30 years, you have more vacation compiled than you can shake a stick at. And so it's pretty easy, provided that you can manage what's going on at your day job well enough to get out of the office for a day and work on something else. So that's tip number 18. Tip number 19. And this is an awesome tip. It's something that I've done before, but I kind of forgot about. And I was watching Matt Ragland's talk from ConvertKit Craft and Commerce this year, 2019. That's on YouTube. I'll put a link to the video for Matt's talk in the show notes. If you don't know Matt, he's a really awesome guy. He's got a great story, very interesting guy to watch. But he talks about time management, and the topic is side hustling. And one of the things that he says you should do is track your time. Now, this sounds horrible, actually, right? Tracking your time sounds like this terrible thing. But one of the things you can do is just take a paper calendar that has 30-minute increments in it. You can print out your Google Calendar when it's showing that view of the day with a little block for each 30 minutes, and just jot down what you are doing in each 30-minute increment. So for right now, this 30-minute increment at 8:30 in the morning here in Dallas, Texas, I would just make a note that I was recording the podcast. Very simple. And I wouldn't bother writing down increments in less than 30-minute increments. I would just write down the main thing that you were doing for that 30 minutes. At 7:30 this morning, the main thing that I did was I took both of my kids to school. That's another great thing about taking a day off of work, because usually my wife gets to do that. Today, I got to take the kids to school. So that was really cool. Got to have a great conversation with my son on the way to middle school. He's having a great year in his first year at middle school. So just write down what you're doing and do that for a week or so. And I think you will find that you are doing stuff that you probably didn't realize you were spending so much time doing. The example that Matt gives in the video that you can find in the show notes over at latenightim.com/178, that example, he follows college football recruiting. Now, he went to school in Florida, and that's messed up, but I follow college football recruiting for the Aggies. And so I know I spend time there, not nearly as much as Matt, but that's the kind of example of a thing that, as Matt says, we all have our guilty pleasures, and I totally get that, and I do too, but you're probably going to find out that you're spending way more time than you realized hanging out on Facebook or doing some sort of other thing that you didn't realize. Another one for me is watching Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is not exactly a fast game. It is very easy to spend 3 hours a day for 6 months watching Major League Baseball. People do that. I know people that watch the Texas Rangers every night when they're on television. They play 6 days a week. That's almost 20 hours a week of Major League Baseball. What in the world kind of business could you build with 20 hours a week? Now, I'm not saying that you've got such an extreme example, but I am saying that I bet you don't know what your examples are because you've never tracked it. So take a simple piece of paper, track it for a week, and hook up with me on Voxer and let me know what you find about places where you're spending time. Because if you can cut out a few of those things, then you can find some additional time to work on your internet business.
It's time to get to work building your internet business. One night at a time.
Okay. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some things that are going on in search and some things that you can do about them. So, one thing that I am noticing in search, and this is something that's been discussed for a long time, is that Google is using what they call rich snippets, and they're putting those snippets as the answer to the search results. So if you write a blog post with facts about this great state of Texas, and one of your pieces of information near the top of that post is that the current population of Texas, then when someone Googles for the current population of Texas, in the old days, the Google would look for the best answer for that, and it would point you to that web page, and you would click through to the web page that was written about the population of Texas, and you would read your answer on that site. And the site owner liked that because that provided traffic for that site owner. So that was really great. Then Google realized that the business they're really in is keeping people on Google.com, which is understandable. So they started borrowing content from people's websites and presenting the answer to the content on their website in a little snippet. And if you wanted to read more, you could click through. But for a query like how many people live in Texas right now, there wasn't really any need to click through. So you would just get the answer and then you'd be done and you would never visit the website. Now, for the website owner, that's not good because that means they never got any traffic. And for those of you that are wondering, if you try this, if you type in current population of Texas into Google, what you find out is currently there are 28.7 million people in Texas. That's as of 2018. And I'm pretty sure that all of those people are on the freeway with me every morning when I drive into my day job, by the way. But there are 28.7 million people in Texas. It's not quite as big as California. It's bigger than New York, and it's growing at an alarming rate. And you can learn all of that without ever clicking off of the Google page. So I don't know where they got that data. They don't even, it says, the source includes the United States Census Bureau. There's not even a link for me to click there. So whoever's business strategy it was to publish that data so that they could monetize that traffic with ads for Netflix or however they were making their money on their blog, Google undermined that by using this rich snippet technology. Now, my friend Michael Stelzner over Social Media Examiner, he wrote an amazing opinion piece that identified this as one of the key things that is going to totally kill organic search traffic on the internet. That as Google gets smarter and smarter, basically, Michael argues, and starts extracting more and more content from the web and reducing the amount of times that you need to click through to the article that from which information that you're searching for comes from, then that is going to actually mean that people are not going to be getting the traffic that they're currently using to monetize their blog. People are just not ever going to leave Google. Let me give you another real life example. Let's say you've got an iPhone 10 and it hangs up on you for the first time. This is your first time without a button to push, the iPhone 10 button. And you need to know how to reset it. You don't know how to reset an iPhone 10 because it's got different buttons and you've never done a hard reset on an iPhone before. So what do you type into Google? You type in how to hard reset iPhone 10. I'm typing it now. And what you find out is that all you need to do is press and quickly release the volume up button. And the answer to this is actually coming from the Verizon website. It even has it in steps. Step 2 is to press and hold the side button until the Apple logo appears. And while Verizon has an awesome knowledge base article on that topic, I don't even need to click on it because I've got that answer right there in Google, and I don't even need to click through. Now, if let's say that it wasn't even Verizon, maybe it's iMore or one of these really good iPhone blogs. Those guys are counting on that traffic for advertising, but Google is stealing that traffic away. And I don't know about stealing. We can talk about the ethics of using the content and so forth, but this issue is a very serious issue for bloggers because traffic is the lifeblood of blogs, and without traffic, you can't have monetization. So you've got to get eyeballs on your blog. So what do you do about this? I think you do a couple of things. One is, I think while Michael is absolutely right, and I'll link to his article in the show notes, it's an excellent opinion piece that he's written, and I strongly recommend that you do it. In most cases, not all cases, Google is still putting the link to that article in the top part of this rich snippet. So that link is still there. Now, Michael's data and other data that people are publishing is showing that even in some pretty complicated cases, people aren't clicking that link. They're just looking at the rich snippet, and that's enough information. But at least that link is there. So when people do click it, you can still capture that traffic. So some traffic is better than no traffic. So I would continue to try and target rich snippets, and I would continue to try and get my link up there. Just understand that the amount of traffic that's driving you is going to be less than it used to be. But the second thing that I would do is I would start to comprehend this in my content strategy and start to understand that maybe you need to be targeting content where rich snippets can't give the answer. So let me give you an example of a case where rich snippets aren't going to give you the answer. This time management tips topic that I gave. Most of the time, if somebody's looking for a solution to a problem, it's not going to fit into the rich snippets box. So maybe Google can show the first 3 tips, but in that case, that's actually going to cause the reader to want to look at more information and click directly through the blog. Or maybe you're writing about something more complicated, like how to repair a Toyota alternator or something like that. Those kind of topics are never going to be rich snippet compatible. So what I encourage you to do is use your Google Analytics, understand whether the top ranking pages that you have that are showing snippets, and understand how you can modify those snippets to cause click-through, and understand how you can change your content strategy to result either in the creation of snippets that result in click-throughs or avoid topics like the Texas population topic where the question is simply answered by snippets and there's no reason for someone to click through. In other words, make your blogging and your content creation snippet aware in order to combat this strategy. I don't think the end of all time is approaching and organic traffic will eventually go to zero, because I do believe there's a lot of content that is not snippet compatible. But I do agree with Mike that as Google gets more and more sophisticated about the use of content, then it's going to be a very interesting discussion about what this happens. The piece that I don't know here, and the part that Mike doesn't really cover in his article, is I don't know where this is going to land legally in the long run. So, we had this recent thing where Google was caught red-handed stealing lyrics from Genius.com and republishing them on the site. They were able to forensically determine that they were scraping Genius.com. And actually, it turns out it was a third party that Google was hiring, but whatever. Google was showing somebody else's content without attribution. All of this stuff is copyrighted. The text that I put on my blog is copyrighted. I have a copyright on that, and I could assert that against Google. And Google could ignore me, which they probably would, and I could sue them. Or I could get 1,000 people together and sue Google in a class action lawsuit over these rich snippets because there's revenue that I'm missing out because they're surfacing my content and I'm not getting any benefit from that. I believe, I'm not an attorney, but I believe that could be an interesting class action lawsuit. Google would probably argue fair use, but fair use is only a defense in these cases, and it would be up to a judge to decide whether or not Google's scraping of information off of my website and using it for their own purposes, namely advertising revenue generation on google.com, whether or not that constituted some kind of copyright violation with damages awarded to the class. So that would be very interesting. I think that's the one thing that could roll this back. Otherwise, I expect that Michael's analysis in that article is going to be true, and that while organic traffic's not going to go away, organic traffic is something that's going to be affected as Google gets smarter and smarter about how to display your hard work on their website without paying you. So while we're on the topic of traffic, there was one more thing that I wanted to talk about that I had seen on a recent article on medium.com. So a buddy of mine, Andrew Hansen, he runs a blog at andrewhansen.name. He is a longtime affiliate marketer. You guys know Andrew. He's been on the show, and I love Andrew. And he published this outstanding article over on Medium that I will link to in the show notes about blog commenting as a way to generate traffic. Now, this is an old thing. Blog comments are something that have been around for a long time, but Andrew breaks this down as a legitimate way. You know, there was a time when, back in the gray hat days of search engine optimization, before Google was very smart at all, where bloggers and other SEO-minded people would generate as many comments as possible on blogs all over the planet, hoping to get links back to their content so that Google would see those links when they saw the comments on that blog, and that would provide link juice back to the blog. Now, those days are largely gone, although those of you with blogs probably do see these automated nonsensical comments coming into your spam folder in comments on your blog. And blog commenting in general, I think, has become less of a thing. Most of you don't comment on my blog anymore. We're more over on social media than we are on blog comments. But still, I think blog comments do occur, and there is conversation going on there. And Andrew's article makes the argument that a useful thing to do when you're trying to become an authority in a niche or creating some content that you want people to find and you want to build community around that comment is go find where people are talking about your topic and contribute to that conversation. That's a useful thing to do all by itself. So if you're in the wicker basket niche and you want to go find the top wicker basket blogs and add to the conversation, go find the top posts on the top wicker basket blogs and go ahead and actually contribute to that conversation. And most of these blogs will actually let you leave your name and usually a picture of yourself, oftentimes a gravatar, and a link back to your blog. And if you've also got a wicker basket blog with great information and you're creating excellent content and you someday want to be one of the top wicker basket blogs in the universe, then that's a really, really good way to start to get some exposure while making the internet a better place, adding to the content on someone else's site. That's a completely legitimate use of comments, and that's a super good way to go if you want to do a little bit of that every day. Eventually, people are going to start to recognize you, especially if you use the tools that Andrew suggests in the article, like Ahrefs, to find the top blogs so you can get the highest ROI back on your contribution. If a blog comment falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, is it a comment at all? No. So, if you're commenting on some obscure website that no one's ever going to see your comment, it doesn't matter. But if you're on the top websites and people see your comment and they find it useful, some of those people are going to click through your blog, and that's great. The other thing that they're going to do is, the other opportunity that you're going to have is there are going to be occasions where someone is going to say something or there's going to be a legitimate opportunity where leaving a link back to your blog in the comment itself to a particular post is going to be a legitimate thing. So for example, if I went around and I was on a blog and someone was looking for time management tips for side hustlers, it would be a very legitimate answer to their question for me to say, hey, in case you're interested, I just did a podcast on that. It's episode 177. You can find it here. That's not spammy or anything. That's the actual question they asked. It's a direct answer. What would be spammy is if I went on some blog where time management wasn't even the topic and just started leaving that link around. I don't want to do that. But when I'm actually answering in reply to someone's question, I think that's a really good use of blog comments as well. So Andrew makes a strong argument for blog commenting, that it's not dead. It's still an effective thing. I think this is also something that you can choose to very carefully outsource. If you get someone with a great command of the English language, you train them to always add value, especially if they're an expert or they know a lot about the niche. Maybe you've got a high school student or something, you can pay a few $10 an hour or whatever to go do this for a couple hours every week. I think you can see that you could build up a following and click-throughs back to your blog. And once someone comes to your blog and they see that it's a great blog, then that person can become a reader. Maybe you can collect their email address. And so these things will accumulate over time. This is not a traffic strategy that, you're paying for every time you recapture that reader. What you're trying to do is create value in one place that's not your blog, bring a reader over to your blog, deliver value again in that instance, and then capture that lead, and then have that guy as a regular reader for the rest of time. So those are my two things I wanted to talk to you about traffic today. I hope that's helpful. Be sure and check the show notes for a link to Michael Stelzner's post, which is great reading, and Andrew Hansen's post over on Media as well. And I hope you enjoy both of those articles. Both of those guys are awesome. Okay, that wraps it up for this week. Your action, as a personal favor to me, is to download the Voxer app and send me a hello message. Tell me what you're up to. And know that if you ask an awesome question, that awesome question could be used on the show. See, I have an ulterior motive here. You guys ask me great questions all the time. If you do it on Voxer, then I have audio that we can use on the show. And how cool would that be to hear your voice on the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast? And by the way, I guess this kind of goes without saying, but I am Late Night IM on Voxer, so I should be easy to find. Drop me a line if you have trouble hooking up, but it's Late Night IM is my screen ID on Voxer. See you there.
You can do it right when it's late at night.
You've been listening to the Late Night Internet Marketing Podcast.
Be sure to visit latenightpodcast.com today to leave feedback for Mark. Download special bonus content, access the show notes, and more. See you there.
Until then, go and make some great progress on your internet business. One night at a time.
One night at a time.
So a funny story about living in the South for those of you that aren't from Texas. I am a Christian. I think that's not a surprise to most of you who've been following me for a long time. And I don't know that I'm an awesome one, but I am a Christian, and I don't know particularly that I do a very good job or an appropriate job or the right job of evangelizing the gospel. I certainly do try to lead that way and live my life in the way that Christ would want me to, but I don't know that I go talking to people about it the right amount, whatever that means. So that's, something that you struggle with. Evangelism is a big debate in the Christian faith. So knowing that, I'm walking down the street, or I'm around town, and I am wearing a hat that I got at FlynnCon from Teachable. And I love this hat because I'm working on a course right now, the late night affiliate course. And I'm going, I've been working on this for like 100,000 years, but I'm actually getting close to getting this done. But this hat is a hat from Teachable. It says Teachable in small letters on the back, but on the front of the hat, it says Creator. And to me, I'm wearing this hat. It's a Teachable hat. I got it at the conference. The Teachable people were nice enough to give me the hat. They were super cool. And I'm wearing this hat around town, and someone approached me and said, "Hey man, I love your hat. Did you get that from your church?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you're wearing a Creator hat. And I thought, Creator, I get it. So what's the lesson from that? I mean, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, man. Where you're coming from, where your head is at, and what your perspective is, it means it completely colors your interpretation of everything. So know that when you go out into the world, and before you judge someone or criticize someone or evaluate someone, good or bad, understand that everything that you see and everything that you're interpreting in the world is colored by your own perception. And just take that into account as you're making your assessments of people and things. Ciao.
Late night internet marketing.
Hey, it's Mark again. I wanted to tell you one more time about this absolutely free resource that I have for helping people who are trying to get the big picture for internet marketing, actually get started and understand what all their choices are. If that's not you, there's no more content. You can skip to the end. But if you're someone who came to this podcast because you're searching for how to get started online and you just can't cut through all the noise, I get it. That was me. In 2007, when I was trying to get started, there were so many people throwing offers at me that I really couldn't even understand what all the different business models were. I couldn't understand how money moved around on the internet, and I couldn't really get a grip on what direction I wanted to go in so I could figure out how to move forward. I've created a free video resource for you just for that purpose at latenightim.com/explain. In several short videos, I just explained to you what internet marketing is all about and what online business is all about and the different options that you have for starting an online business. There's nothing to buy there. You just sign up for access and you get the videos just like that. So if that's interesting to you, or if you know someone who's in a same situation, send them that link, latenightim.com/explain. And let me know what you think. I'd love to hear what people are thinking that are in the exact same position that I was in more than a decade ago in 2007. In some ways, it seems like yesterday. And in some ways, it seems like an entire lifetime ago. Again, that's latenightim.com/explain.
Late night internet marketing.